Okay, YouTube, it is April 29th, and we ain't going to delay. We're going to go ahead and get into part two of Marianne Williamson's platform. Now, I think we left off on LGBTQ issues, so we're going to get right into that and then get into the last six segments of her platform. And then after that, we're going to go into the long, extensive list of Andrew Yang's platform. So stay tuned. Let me expand my thing real quick, y'all. My thing ain't even fully expanded. Okay, y'all. Going into LGBTQ issues. I think we ended off on immigration, so now we're going to go into LGBTQ rights. And of course, for the general stuff, I just allow y'all to read over it to save time. I don't think y'all want me to be the narrator of everything on here, so okay, now this is what I want to get into. Hypothetically, you as an LGBTQ individual can legally enter a same-sex marriage on Saturday. Then on Sunday, you can be refused service at your local restaurant, denied partnership rights at your local hospital, fired by your employer for your orientation. Now, I will say, as far as orientation, a lot of more jobs are becoming more lenient with sexuality to a certain extent. But definitely the restaurants and stuff, we got to get it together and evicted from your home by your landlord with little or no legal protections or recourse available. And that is still true to this day. Some people think it is as simple as a bathroom bill and transgender people want to go into, and that has never been a problem, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But you have to think in Texas, they just passed a bill where doctors can go against their medical oath and pretty much discriminate against seeing LGBT patients, especially transgenders. If a doctor, and I ain't talking about for a sex change operation. I'm talking about if somebody needs to go for a general checkup, or God forbid if they have to go in for a gunshot wound to the head or something, and there's a neurologist who's prejudiced, you have to wait to get another neurologist on site just because somebody might be prejudiced against your sexuality, which is against the medical board code. You supposed to darn gonna treat everybody and put your religious doctrine aside. But Donald Trump wants to circumvent everything as per usual. And down in Texas, they're no different. They just tried to overturn women's rights the other day with Roe versus Wade. They tried to overturn that. They discriminate against black people with violence and stuff. So Texas, in particular, is among the highest when it comes to this type of rhetoric, with banning transgenders from going to the doctor, kicking them out of restaurants, and just pretty much treating them like tertiary citizens. I can't even say second class citizens because the black people are discriminating against them too. But anyways, moving on. According to the Human Rights Campaign in 2017, more than 120 bills described as anti-LGBTQ was introduced across 30 states, including adoption laws and so-called bathroom bills. Honey, we was the talk of the whole damn nation. I'm from North Carolina, and darn going Roy Cooper. I mean, not Roy Cooper. Pat McCord made us the laughing stock of the entire darn nation with the bathroom bill, because you ain't want somebody who looked like T.S. Madison going in the bathroom, but you did not know forcing people to go to the bathroom of their birth genitalia was going to have Chaz Bonner going to the Dargon women's wrestling. I think darn on little children would rather see T.S. Madison in the women's bathroom versus Chaz Bonner, if y'all are familiar with those two celebrities. But anyways, those are just my 2 cents. A frightening percentage have become law, and once again, it ain't getting no better when you have billion-dollar corporations such as darn Chick-fil-A also putting in their funds towards. But once again, whole nother video, whole nother day. Every American deserves to live free from fear of discrimination, regardless of who they are and whom they love. There have been ongoing efforts for over 40 years to change these, except for legal loopholes. There has been meaningful bipartisan legislation in the House ever since 1974, and one version of the reform legislation has been introduced in every Congress since 1994. Unfortunately, through the 115th Congress, all these reforms remain unpassed. I wonder why. In particular, the last Congress Equality Act, H.R. 2282 and S. 1006, and historic and bipartisan legislation combined many of the issues from most of the past 40 years of an effort to ban discrimination against LGBTQ individuals. The Equality Act will provide consistent and explicit non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people across key areas of life, including employment, housing, credit, education, public spaces, services, federal funding programs, and jury. Okay, I'm still looking for what you are going to advocate for specifically. And now this is a good start to get the darn on conversation going. The Equality Act would amend existing civil rights laws, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Now, it's already in the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. We just needed to be in the other things as far as not denying LGBTs from going to the hospital, um, denying us basic medical services, denying LGBTs the right to go dine at a restaurant. Like we needed to include that. Oh, and for them to denying us darn on housing in certain areas. We needed to prevent it from doing all of that. The legislation also amends the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to prohibit discrimination in public spaces and services in federally funded programs on the basis of sexual orientation. And pretty much this is just going back over it. Healthcare, how we could be denied service, mistreated, harassed, housing. Yep, I've seen that too. Find out who you are, and all of a sudden the darn on price goes up. Now, I have seen improvements in employment, so we are doing better in the right direction as far as getting employment equality overall. So I won't touch on that too much. And once again, this is going to be in your Bible Belt states: North Carolina, Alabama, Louisiana. Not so much as Florida. Even though y'all consider Florida the South, okay. Um, Not so much as Florida, but definitely Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina. You see a lot of denying of service of LGBTQs. Okay, I guess that is it. I guess out of that whole thing, she's pretty much going to expand on the bills that are already put forth in Congress, which means this is more so an issue that we have to look forward to our senators and House of Representatives to deal with. I guess she's just pushing more so forth it because I ain't see nothing in this where she advocated any additional bills to be put forth. Okay, yeah, I just plugged my thing in. Okay, back to the issues. Okay, mass incarceration. Now, this is another interesting topic that affects my, people around me personally. Doesn't necessarily affect me personally, but definitely affects people around me. With less than 5% of the world population, but nearly 22% of its prisons population, America has the highest incarceration rate in the world. We imprison almost 2.3 million people today, as opposed to around 300,000 during the 1970s. Of those, 2.3 million estimated indicate between 300,000 and 500,000 are non-violent drug offenders. And that's a whole nother video too for a whole nother day. Building and operating prisons is one of America's largest and most profitable um, urban industries. These companies have made a huge financial investment in lobbying for more severe drug and tough on crime laws and increased criminalization of immigrants. Well, I'm not actually against that one. I mean, I do believe if you are a habitual offender, and that's where I disagree with Miss Marianne Williamson. I'm not for open borders like that. If there are repeat offenders who are making it hard for the immigrants who are trying to go through the right process to get here legally, I do believe, to lock them up. So that's why I disagree with her on that. People arrested, detained, convicted, and sent to private for-profit prisons. The two largest private prison institutions, Core Civic and GEO, own 75% of the market and house and an ever-increasing percentage of America's prison population. The primary funders, in many cases, shareholders of Core Civic and GEO banks are and related financial entities. Private prisons also account for an estimated 73% of detainment facilities for undocumented immigrants in the United States. And once again, I'm not against for the immigrants who are not doing it legally by the paperwork. That's just me. Um, Whole nother video, whole nother day. Such horrifying statistics plus clear racial discrimination in prosecution and sentences makes the issue of mass incarceration a screaming and moral emergency. People of color, particularly African Americans and Latinos, are unfairly targeted by the police and end up facing harsher prison sentences than the white counterparts. And I want to add, as far as African Americans, more so us than anybody. Latinos, um, the only ones that get put in there is mostly the indigenous and African, Afro Latinos. The ones who look like Shakira are not getting profiled as hidden. We already see the sanctuary cities with the heroin epidemic, but once again, whole nother video, whole nother day. You got a whole sanctuary city for darn on heroin addicts, but you still got people who were victims of the crack cocaine epidemic locked up for a little bit of rocks. And but once again, subscribe to my channel and we will go over that video in detail by itself. According to a report released by the U.S. Sentencing Commission, black men receive prison sentences 20% longer than do white men for similar crimes. America is now incarcerating a higher proportion of African American than South Africa did at the height of apartheid. And I wonder why. Maybe it's because of the 13th Amendment allows slavery on the books to this day in the form of the prison system. So the irony that we went from the cotton fields to transferring it over to the prison system. That's a video too. I got so many. I mean, Marianne Williamson is just giving me so many video ideas just to darn on talk about. But yeah, we'll talk about that as well as why black people are pretty much put in the prison system. It's pretty much to uphold slavery. While no one doubts that violent and even many nonviolent criminals belong behind bars, America's incarceration rate speaks to something much deeper than catching criminals. It speaks to a prison industry that lobbies for even bigger budgets and benefits to corporations that exploit cheap prison labor and on Wall Street interests wanting bigger and bigger profits from locking up as many people as possible for as long as possible. The more America ignores this nor these realities and the huge conflict of interest inherent in private for-profit prisons, the richer the prison industry complex and all who benefit from it will become, and the poorer we will be as a nation. So then she goes into prison rehabilitation. The 2018 Criminal Justice Reform Bill successfully deals with a few of the worst aspects of America's prison problems, giving federal judges more leeway when sentencing some drug offenders and boosting prisoner rehabilitation efforts, reducing life sentences for some drug offenders with 3 convictions or 3 strikes to 25 years, and incentivizing prisoners to participate in programs designed to reduce the risk of recidivism, which means pretty much to prevent them from falling into the same habits of putting them back in prison, with the reward of being in early release to either home confinement or a halfway house. Those measures, which apply only to nonviolent offenders and only to federal prisoners, begin what will hopefully be a larger tide of criminal justice reform. Together, we will restore justice techniques and other peace building measures both in and out of prison. Hopefully, America is beginning at the last to turn away from the draconian prison practices that have become such a stain upon America's soul. And that pretty much sums all that up. I also want to add, I do believe Donald Trump just recently tried to cut prison recidivism programs. Also, they was trying to take out GED programs in the prison system. Now, if you are really not trying to uphold slavery, which once again in the 13th Amendment, slavery is still legal in the United States under the guise of prison. Hence why most black people are targeted more than any other race, because this country was built off of the backs of black people. And when you abolished the slavery, only thing you did was shift it in the form of the 13th Amendment, because during the era of Jim Crow, who was the ones being targeted the most? Black people. Who was targeted during the crack epidemic when crack was put in darn gone impoverished black neighborhoods, and you was locking us up for darn gone small crack rocks. But now you have sanctuary cities for darn gone majority white people who are on heroin. Once again, black people were the sufferers of that. And now, who are the largest sufferers of police brutality? Black people. And once again, all of this goes back to maintaining darn gone legalized darn gone slavery. Because even to this day, they still try to profit off of the darn gone uh, strength of black people working. But then turn around and call us the laziest darn gone people. But you darn gonna have a whole for-profit prison and darn gonna arresting people on crack rock that half the time that you plant, because we seen officers with their dash cam stopping people for traffic tickets and then planting crack cocaine on them. Thank goodness now that we got those cams that sometimes even if the officer thinks it's off, sometimes that camera pops on. I think it should be mandatory that those cameras should stay on in certain situations, especially regarding darn on black individuals in the time that we live in. That's something that I want Marianne Williamson to add to her platform. When it comes to darn on arrest on suspicion of a felony, those cameras should be mandated to be turned on at all costs. If you're arresting somebody for a felony offense, that camera should automatically be turned on. So that's one thing I won't address. Number two, I want a special police force to deal with crooked cops, because how is a cop going to get charged properly if they're darn gone friends with the darn gone judges and darn gone the local DA? That's another issue that I want to see. Number three, I want to end the for-profit prison model. That way it would discourage the darn gone quotas. Because why does a police officer have a quota? That's what I want one of these president-elects to darn gone tell me. I mean, one of these candidates to tell me. There should not be a quota, because if there is no crime actually happening, no arrestable crime, just traffic violations and stuff, you shouldn't feel the need to try to find crime. Like I never understood quotas within the law enforcement because once again, you should only be arresting people if crimes are in action. You shouldn't be trying to create crimes and arrest somebody off of something as minuscule as their tags were expired, or they might been driving and they alcohol content was 0.02, but you can darn on legally drive up until 0.08. Like all of those little things. So I want number one, a special police force to darn on prosecute darn on crooked cops. I want to see double prison time for darn on people in law enforcement who break the law. Number three, I want to darn on see end to for-profit prisons and the way that we have it set up today. We need to end the darn gone trying to incentivize people to darn gone find bad behavior where there isn't any, to the point where they have to feel the need to plant crack cocaine on black people. So that's what I really want, Marianne Williamson to think about and all the other candidates who are running for president of the United States. But anyways, moving on. And like I said, we'll get into that with another video on all the cases of black people being framed and police brutality. All of that will be a different video. So national security. That's another thing I want to address. Why do we spend nearly $1 trillion a year on the military and we are not in any active wars at this darn on moment? And we as America got 7 times more artillery than every other nation combined. 7 times the artillery than any other nation combined, yet we're still spending upwards of $1 trillion, nearly $1 trillion a year. What are we doing? What is the military doing? To the tune of darn on $700 billion spent every year over in Africa. But once again, we'll talk about that as well. Having no business over there darn on in Africa. And darn gone controlling a certain area because I've darn gone read a freaking story and I'm gonna have to look some more into that where they're actually guarding darn gone a certain flower that actually creates heroin. Now we dealing with a heroin crisis, but y'all are darn gone guarding the darn gone field. Now the Africans wanted to burn the shit up, but y'all are actually over there protecting the darn on field from being burned. And those darn on same plants come over here, get darn on transform into heroin, and you have more people strung out. Because also we got to go back into the pharmaceutical industry where you profit off of the sickness instead of the cure. So is that why we spending $700 billion a year? Call me a conspiracy theorist. That's just my darn gone fact. Well, semi-facts. I got to darn on vet that a little bit more, but that's going to be a darn on video coming up soon because I'm trying to figure out exactly what else are we over there in Africa for, except for the oil. But once again, Africa's such a shithole country, yet we spending $700 billion over there, guarding oil and stuff. We ain't self-sufficient. That's another reason why we need to get to darn on electricity. Because if we didn't have, if we could darn on become self-sufficient off electricity, we wouldn't need Africa resources for the oil anyway. Where you over there darn gonna bullying people because you ain't over there darn gonna getting the oil all free off the kindness of your heart. We see that by the destabilization of darn gone major African countries. Once again, that's a video within itself. But moving on. Honey, I don't see it becoming a peacetime economy, but we can at least darn gone reduce that military budget by burning them darn gone poppy fields, honey, and darn gone becoming more energy efficient because those are the two main reasons why the military is over there in Africa. Because it's definitely not based off of archerism of the welfare and concern of African people. So you darn gonna deal with darn gonna getting our economy self-sufficient in electricity, honey, that would reduce that budget down to about a good 300 billion within itself. Okay, Marianne Williamson, I see you. I might have spoke too soon. From massive investments in the development of clean energy to the retrofitting of our buildings and bridges to the building of new schools and the creation of green manufacturing base, it's time to release this powerful sector of America genius to the work of promoting life instead of death. Okay, Marianne Williamson, I see you. Now that's what I'm talking about. Once again, I don't know about it creating peace because you unfortunately we still going to have to deal with white supremacy and racism within law enforcement because documentation from the FBI has confirmed that the Ku Klux Klan has infiltrated the police departments nationwide. So that ain't necessarily going to create peace overall. We still got some work to do on our legal end, but this would definitely help get money back into our economy by making ourselves more energy efficient outside of the use of oil. Also, burn the poppy seeds. I would gladly support the establishment of a U.S. Department of Peace Building, provided the president will, with broad consultation regarding the availability and accessibility of nonviolent problem solving options. Honey, once again, that peace building is a dream. You can't really do peace with somebody who is inherently a racist, who don't see no need to change. Like my grandma used to say, honey, you can't teach a darn gone old dog new tricks, honey. And somebody wants to maintain racism and supremacy, especially since you built this country off of racism and you don't want to get off your ass, the darn gonna put in the darn gonna work without darn gonna profiting off the backs of blacks with the for-profit prison system, it ain't going to work. But I'm glad that she's going to target the for-profit prisons and change that up. I don't like the wording of it of her talking about this being peaceful because honey, it ain't gonna be peaceful to take darn on down white supremacy. She'll learn when she get in that darn on office and get some pushback. It ain't nothing peaceful about how to go by doing this, but if she is serious about going by doing it, I'm definitely gonna be with her. Honey, I can be the more physical side for her. She talking about kumbaya, honey. You gonna have to get your hands dirty. National service. So what? I believe the United States should institute a program whereby every American citizen between the age of 18 and 26. Y'all know I'm 26. Well, thank goodness by the time her ass would get in there, I would be, let me see, 2021. I'll be 28. So this won't affect me, but able to perform 1 year of national service. Now, what is national service? I hope she ain't trying to encourage people to be in the military. Oh, no, bitch. Oh, no. You ain't gonna have me over there in Africa guarding no darn on pops. Let me see what she talking about national service. This service could be a variety of areas according to the talents and desires of the individual during the service, from help in school. Oh, okay, okay. Because for a moment, I thought she was talking about national service, talking about, you keep that uniform. Now, that was one thing I was not against, Donald. You want to ban transgenders out the army? Bitch, I don't want the darn gonna serve no damn way. Thank you for giving me a legal out of it, Mr. Darn Bone Spurs. But back to this one. From helping schools to hospitals to infrastructure to work on the sustainability or regeneration of agricultural projects to the I'm trans, honey. And I ain't, you wanted to ban me out of here. Marianne Williamson, you don't need to darn gonna overturn that one. Because when it comes to time when Chinese want to come over here and darn gonna kick somebody ass, don't get the darn gonna drafting me. Cause soon as that darn gonna draft letter come my way, I'm gonna put on the darn gonna thing. Disqualified. Sashay that walk, bitch. Sissy that walk, bitch. And the reason why I said sashay because I'm not darn gonna sissing it towards the army. Honey, I'm sashay away, darling. I'm sashay a damn way. So, you keep that darn on military. But to the peace corps and beyond, this service would be a way to every American citizen to spend 1 year of their youth in service to the repair of our nation. The service should be remunerated either in terms of housing, remunerated either in the terms of housing and basic costs or in the term of financial support for higher education. Okay, you want to incentivize? I don't know. I don't know. But if you want to flip the cost of somebody housing for a stage of 1 year and they get to choose and it don't have to be exclusive to the military, okay, I'm 50-50 on that. Like I said, I'm not for the military for obvious reasons. I'm biased. Honey, the Queen and me came out real quick on my disdain for the military. No offense to the people who have served, but for me, you ain't about to get Diva Wine up in that field, honey. Now, my only thing with this is forcing people to. Like, what if you already going into college and you want to be dedicated full time? I don't think you should add it to be a mandate. Like, I don't know. It's going to have to be some stipulations on that. Like, what if you got an 18-year-old who's an entrepreneur and they already got their own business thriving? Like, so I don't know about 1 year giving back to the youth if you have 18 to 26-year-olds who are entrepreneurs or who are in school full time or something like that. I don't know about that. So, but this will definitely be good to the ones who are struggling in the job market, the postgraduates who, can't find a job immediately. So that might be good. That's why I'm still saying it's 50-50. I don't think it should be necessarily a mandate though, but I'm not against it being, necessarily an option. And y'all, it's darn on finally 80 degrees in North Carolina. So I got my fan on and I got my AC going. And the reason why I had to have my fan on is because I only have one AC vent in this darn on room. And it's not enough to cool down this room by itself. Okay, Native American Justice. Let's see what she talking about with us on this one. Making amends towards the Native American reconciliation, whether for an individual or for a nation, internal as well as external issues must be addressed if fundamental changes to occur. Primary among this is the addressing of one or more character defects, including the willingness to atone and make amends for ways we have transgressed. For the United States, three main characterological issues must be addressed this way. Our modern propensity to militarism, our relationship with Black Americans, and our relationship with Native Americans. Okay, she included both sides of the aisle. Come on through. And matter of fact, I think she's the only one, for the exception of Senator Elizabeth Warren. And yeah, y'all keep the jokes. Y'all keep the $5 Indian jokes on for the. We're gonna do a video on Elizabeth Warren, so y'all save the $5 Indian jokes for when I do her video. But yeah, but for the ones who are true, who can actually trace their lineage. Native Americans lived on the continent for thousands of years before our European ancestors discovered it. The wisdom of the Okay, I guess she said before they discovered it in the contents of them finding it. Okay. I'm glad at least she phrased it as if they were here before. Okay. But still, before you came on here, you ain't really discovered nothing. You mean before your people raped, privileged, and darn gone caused separation, the Trail of Tears, and darn gone American textile slavery. But okay, we'll allow you to clean it on up, sister. We'll allow you to darn gone be Sister Mary Clarence to the shit. The wisdom of the indigenous people of North America graced the soil before the white intruders ever arrived. Okay, I'm glad she understands it and said intruders. It is estimated that in 1492 there were up to 18 million indigenous people who lived in the area that is now in the United States. Yet by 1890, as a result of war and disease, there were only about 250,000 natives left here alive. I don't know necessarily about that because it was millions of natives. Um, but then again, she might be just talking about America only. I don't, but 1492, uh, Christopher Columbus actually was in the Bahama area. So it wasn't until shortly later that they actually made it onto actual United States soil. Just a little history lesson to Marianne Williamson. So I don't know if she was just including, the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Bahamas up in this, but you know, it is what it is. Native Americans experienced both physical and cultural genocide over the years. The U.S. government made various treaties with Native American tribes, which have been continuously broken. Our broken promises have contributed to justice and poverty among more than 5 million Native Americans living here today. In addition to higher poverty rates, reservations are hindered by lower than national average education levels, poor healthcare services, low employment, substandard housing deficiencies, economic infrastructure, and now as of in North Dakota during the 2018 midterms, voter suppression efforts. Honey, I think voter suppression was the last thing darn gone Sioux Indians were worried about. I hope she touched on the Sioux Indians being shot down with pellet guns, having their water tainted with a darn gone pipeline, and then didn't have no choice in the matter of the pipeline, and then it's darn gonna leak oil to the tune of tens of thousands of gallons of oil, and the Native Americans never got any form of compensation for all that torture. So I wouldn't blame the Sioux Indians if they seek some reparations in the next upcoming years as well. But anyways, another video for another day. In the words of the Friends Committee on National Legislation, the federal government should provide adequate funding for the essentials of life, not as a gift or as charity, but as the fulfillment of commitments made at the founding and throughout the expansion of this nation. As president, I will support returning dominant control of the black heat. Okay, honey. Child. If darn gone Marianne Williamson don't win no other state, I know she done won South Dakota for that one right there, at least from the Native Americans. Because I haven't heard nobody else even mention the Black Hills. Hell, not even darn gone Elizabeth Warren. Honey, she done won up darn on Elizabeth Warren on this, and Elizabeth Warren, you claim a Native American ancestry, but I haven't even heard you mention the darn on hills, honey. But Marianne Williamson, for the Sioux Indians out there, she's going to return the Black Hills of South Dakota to the Sioux Nation. The Black Hills, considered sacred to the Sioux, were promised by treaty in 1868 and should be returned as promised. Come on through, Marianne Williamson. I'm not even a darn gone Sioux Indian, and I'm darn gone rooting for my indigenous brothers down in or up in North Dakota. It's North Dakota considered up from us because I think North Dakota is in the west, and y'all know I'm in the south. But to my adjacent darn gone state, North Dakota, come on through, Sioux Indians. Hayton construct halting construction of the Keystone Pipeline, respecting native tribes' uh, sovereignty over their territory. Well, the pipeline is already done. I don't know what you halting. You mean taking it out? You can't halt the construction at this point. It's already done. It's already leaking thousands of gallons of oil. So I'm assuming what she mean by that is taking out the pipeline. Honey, come on through with for the natives, honey. Come on through. Efforts by tribal nations to regain and restore their communities and heritage. Improvement of native land justice systems, which due mainly to chronic underfunding, make it difficult to enforce prosecution of non-natives accused of serious crime. Okay. Protection of tribal sovereignty. Tribal nations have important needs for infrastructure, education, and economic development that are severely underfunded and under-resourced. My administration will continue to push for an aid to strengthen tribal self-governance. Okay, I'm here for it. Protecting native religious freedoms, protecting sacred sites and lands from sale, mining, or transfer without consultation with tribes. Rethinking treaties that have limited native tribes' ability to make decisions about their own lands. Continuing tribal nation summits annually held in Washington with the full support of key cabinets agency in order to discuss and garner feedback on issues relating to planned federal activities that might impact tribal nations. Okay. Honey, I think darn gone Marianne Williamson darn gone pretty much swept up the Native American vote. Now, unfortunately, Native Americans only have 2% of the population, so she's going to need the rest of us in there. But, honey, I think it's safe to say nearly all the Native Americans are going to be mostly for Marianne Williamson come 2020 because I haven't even heard Elizabeth Warren go in detail to this. Now, she's advocating for reparations, but I haven't heard her mention everything else to this extent. Okay, y'all, we're now on to racial reconciliation and healing. I'm not on camera for the rest of this part because we're now into day 3. I had to cut it short last night. Um, yeah, I tried my best to get into the late night live stream. Sometimes it don't go too well late night. So we into the 3rd day. My face is peeling a little bit too much for me to be on camera. So y'all gonna have to do without seeing my face for the rest of this video. So on to racial reconciliation and healing. So, race relations and reconciliation. Okay, the practice of slavery began in the country in the 1600s, and by the end of the Civil War in 1864, there are believed to have been almost 4 million slaves in America. Why it's important that we not in any way minimizing the extraordinary efforts made by those before us. It is our generation turn to continue the process of total reconciliation with the evil in America's past. I don't know how much of a past it is because it's still going on to this day in the form of the prison system, but okay. Yes, we ended slavery. Well, no, you didn't. You pretty much transferred it over to the prison system, but you ended chastise slavery as far as cotton fields are concerned. Yes, we passed civil rights legislation, which benefited mostly white people in the form of affirmative actions and all of that, and other minority groups, but neither here nor there, including the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s. Oh, and we still got redlining. I just hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it seems like everything that has worked for the strides of black people is always came back and darn gone got undermined in some way. Because we can say we ended slavery, but then the 13th Amendment says slavery is still legal in the form of the justice system. Civil rights, okay, civil rights was more like an all lives matter as opposed to, solely black people. Like I said, women benefited from it, in general, including white women. You had more foreigners benefit than anything. And then the Voting Rights Act, we're still dealing with redlining issues. Like, it took just a couple weeks ago just to get over the District 9 scandal here in North Carolina. So redlining is still happening as late as 2019. But no, we have not yet fully alone all that it is morally incumbent upon us to do in order to heal this ugly wound. The 40 acres and a mule promised to every former slave after the Civil War was not a joke. It was a means by which a formerly enslaved population, which would have had a chance to integrate economically into the life as a free citizen, while a few were in fact given their acreage. The vast majority were not, and most who received them would see the land given back to previous owners over time. After the Civil War, black code laws were passed in the South to ensure that black Americans, former slaves, would not be able to live economically or socially on par with white Americans and their former masters. Lynching became prevalent by the end of the 1800s. Jim Crow laws guaranteed the disenfranchisement of black Americans from voting. White supremacy and segregation were dominant in the American South. None of this was fundamentally addressed until the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. Under the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr., finally serious efforts were made to dismantle the horrors of institutionalized white supremacy. While some Americans like to believe that our problems ended there did not. Over the 2 centuries of slavery, forced unpaid labor that is essence built the economy of American South means that someone owes someone something. And then it continues on from there. For that, okay, now here we getting into the nitty gritty. For that reason, I propose a $200 billion through $500 billion plan of reparations for slavery, the money to be dispersed over the period of 20 years. An esteemed council of African American leaders will determine the educational and economic projects to which the money will be given. See, we'll talk in a minute on that. As president, I will propose more than a deeper understanding between the races. We certainly need that, and I believe I could be helpful in making that happen. Racism is an American character defect for which we must atone, make amends, and be willing to change. I will promise this historical step forward in American history and what I believe would be a steep and abiding gift to future generations of American, both black and white. Okay, I commend Marianne Williamson heavily for being the only candidate that's really serious about reparations. However, we got to add an extra zero onto it. I know that seems scary, but if you have Andrew Yang feeling confident that he can darn gone propose $3 trillion annually, now it's not so much far-fetched that you can give black people $6 trillion in reparations. Because if somehow we can find the money to propose $3 trillion annually and indefinite to anybody over the age of 18, because on Andrew Yang's platform, he is proposing a tune of nearly $3 trillion to be given out to every American citizen, regardless of income, regardless of background, as long as you are documented naturalized citizen, or you are a born citizen of America over the age of 18, you will get $1,000 a month. So with that being said, how hard is it to give black people $6 trillion, $5 trillion, which is not even in the form of direct money? You can put that towards bank loans in the form of black owned banks such as One United. You can also have grant incentive programs, also housing and economic building programs, so we can have our own lands. I mean, it's a shame that only black people who are foreigners have their own towns here in America. You have Jamaica Town, you have Haitian Town, and all these other areas, Chinatown, and the list goes on and on. White people have their high class communities. Black people are the only ones where we got to be subjugated to the hood. Our towns are the darn on low income impoverished hoods. We the only ones that don't have our darn on thriving darn on neighborhoods and communities. So I propose in the $5 trillion that it goes towards grants where we can have our own land allotments. We need land allotments. We need grants to build and pay workers to build schools on those systems. I mean, on that land. We need our own stores and stuff built on those lands. And then also we can fund our own law enforcement. And this the same thing is no different with Native Americans and Jewish people. Believe it or not, Jewish people have their own communities where they have Jewish police officers. Native Americans have their sovereign lands where they have Native American police officers. So, and they're not dealing with a huge influx of crime like that. So why can't we use this reparations to simultaneously combat police brutality and police our own neighborhoods by having our own police officers funded by us, for us? Because that's what police officers are originally for. They are supposed to be for everybody. Our taxpayer dollars pay for the police. But somehow when it comes to black people, they tend to forget that. So just like Native Americans had to separate and have their own police unions, and Jewish people, I believe we as black people can have our own neighborhoods built up on land allotments, and we can have our polices set up for us as well, because that's what they supposed to be for in the first place. Darn gone police paid by our tax dollars, or in this case reparational funds, to darn gone uphold law enforcement. So that's what I would propose with the $5 trillion. And then the extra $1 trillion will be given out as direct disbursements, which I would go into in another video, because I don't think everybody should get an equal disbursement. I think it should be based off of lineage of how true to your chattel slavery roots that you are. So I do also want to propose a percentage plan as far as identifying who are true, American descendants of enslaved Africans versus ones who might just be one or two generations. Because you have a lot of Africans here, such as Nigerian population in Texas. You have a huge Ethiopian population in Virginia, etc. We have to differentiate the offsprings of those Africans versus the Africans who descend from American chattel slavery, who's been here more than 3 generations. So that's what I would propose. And I know that's very in-depth, and that's why I commend her also on getting with Americans. What did she say? American civil rights leaders and other prestigious African Americans. But I need her to be more specific on who she's planning on going to, because the NAACP is half white. It was not founded solely by black people. The African American Coalition, they proven not to be really effective in the interests of black people. Reverend Al Sharpton actually denied reparations. So I want her to also elaborate on who is this selective group of African Americans that's going to speak up for all of us. So yeah, we definitely need to tweak this in quite a bit, but I will make a whole nother video on that by itself, because just to go on this extensive topic alone is an hour-long subject, and I don't want to make this video 2 hours long. But that's just my little 10 cents on that subject right there. But we'll speak more about that in a separate video on reparations and the proper disbursement for it, and how $6 trillion is the appropriate number to give to Americans descendants of enslaved Africans. I don't like the American descendants of slaves because our people, my people as in black people, were not born to be slaves. They were people who were put in enslaved conditions. So I believe in the terminology of American of descendant enslaved Africans. That's just my personal preference on that. So next we go into reproductive rights. So now we're going into the women's issues. So outside of the obviously accepted illegality of sex with children, the U.S. government has no business telling any of us what we can or cannot do with our bodies. They also should include bestiality in there too. Regarding abortion rights, I am 100% pro-choice. Abortion is a moral issue, but I do not believe the government of the United States has the right to legislate our private morals. I believe the decision of whether or not to have an abortion lies solely with the pregnant woman, according to the dictates of her conscience in communion with God of her understanding. I do not feel the government has an appropriate right to deny or restrict that decision. I slightly disagree with that, and I'll go into why I disagree with that. Expanding the woman's understanding of her alternatives to terminate is a good thing, but eradicating or limiting abortion rights will not decrease their number. It will simply mean that rich women have safe abortions while poor women go back to risking injury or death in the modern equivalent of back alley abortion. Okay, I'm surprised she was even familiar with that one. And once again, she's the only one I've heard actually speak about the back alley abortions, which is a huge issue, specifically in the black community. So I give her points on that one. Marianne Williamson really did her homework. She's not just darn gone talking the talk. I see she's walking the walk and actually did her thorough research on these issues. That to me is morally unacceptable. In several states, restrictive measures such as the closing of abortion clinics and forced vaginal probes are currently in play. Planned Parenthood, a sole source of medical care for millions of women, is under attack in various states in an effort to block the availability of reproductive choice. As a president, I will seek to protect the right of every woman to make her own business in her own way regarding her reproductive choices. The choice whether or not to terminate a pregnancy is difficult enough without having the government weighing in on the decision. Therefore, I will vigorously resist any effort to restrict, limit, or diminish the reproductive rights and freedom granted by Roe v. Wade. Okay, now here's where I disagree. Now, y'all know I just did 2 videos on controversial subjects regarding Texas trying to overturn Roe v. Wade. And I disagree with one of them. And the reason was, I do not believe if abortion was attempted and the baby comes out alive, I don't think you should kill the baby. I think that the baby should be brought to health if you can, and then given up for adoption. I do not believe in killing the baby who was an attempt of a failed abortion. I guess that was a problem in Texas where, there was failed abortions and the babies were coming out alive and they were still killing them anyway. I think that is morally wrong. So no, I do not agree with killing babies under that circumstance. Also, I am against late term abortions for the most part. I mean, 8-9 months is like, okay, unless the baby is at a risk of putting the mother's life in danger, that's the only way that I would condone an abortion at that late term, is if you have to choose between the mother and the child. I believe you can choose the mother over the child. So unless the mother's life is in danger, I'm not for late term abortions. I think the general cutoff for abortions should be 3 months. So 12 weeks is the cutoff date for abortions, for the exception of if the mother's life is in danger during pregnancy. So yeah, outside of that, I'm really in the middle when it comes to abortions. So that's my stance on that. 3 months it should be the general cutoff. I was not with Texas trying to limit abortions under any circumstance. They was trying to make it so rape victims could not even get abortions. People who were in sex trafficking, which is a huge epidemic, especially in the Black and Native American communities. Last year alone, over 20,000 Native American Indians were, taken into trafficking. So if any of them get found and were pregnant and they wanted to have an abortion, I do believe that's their right to have the abortion under those circumstances. Also, incest with family members, I believe you should have the right to have an abortion under those circumstances. And that parent or whoever was raping them, that obviously should be locked up as well. But anyways, that's a whole nother video, whole nother day. So now that we got reproductive rights out the way, now we on to Social Security. So Social Security should not be at risk. Social Security, signed into law by President Franklin Roosevelt in 1935, was created to ensure that our seniors can live in dignity without fear of poverty. Workers pay into a fund during their prime years and then get regular paychecks back when they stop working. It is used when understanding a subject to examine the same name of that subject by providing Social Security to individuals in their later years. The program was designed to provide greater security to society itself. We all benefit from knowing that there is a basic floor of needs met for those in later and less advantaged stages of life. Social Security has worked well for generations to reduce poverty among seniors and the disabled. It is under attack today by Wall Street banks and related financial service entitled entities who want to privatize it for no other reason than to tap into another new and huge source of income in bonuses. To that end, opponents of Social Security have claimed over the last few years that it is running out of money soon. It is true that there could be problems with Social Security funding down the line, but they are quite easily solved by making modest changes such as raising the cap on income subject to Social Security payroll tax. That simple modification can keep the system solvent indefinitely without reducing benefits. Under no circumstances should we put Social Security at risk. We need to protect this success and compassionate programs that retired Americans have rallied on for nearly 85 years. Once again, this is another issue I'm somewhat on the middle of, but then again, I'm in that 15% that's entrepreneurial. I don't believe working in the modern day period scheme of 40 years just to receive a paycheck that's 2/3 of your worth. And if you're in the working class and you was barely surviving off of that working class paycheck, you're definitely going to be in a more impoverished state, because Social Security only pays out about 60% of what you was really working with during your time that you was employed. So it doesn't give you the same amount of income that you was making working. And if you was barely struggling paycheck to paycheck, a lot of people tend to have to rely on government assistance once they have to turn to this. So yeah, I'm not for taking it away, but I think we should also focus on adding other opportunities, encouraging people who are in that 85% that's not entrepreneurial. Invest in your 401k. Definitely invest in your 401k. If you have a job with a pension, that's even more better, to combine that pension with the Social Security, because Social Security by itself just not going to cut it with the average blue collar working family that's struggling from paycheck to paycheck. About like I'm struggling to get the darn on sentence out. But anyways, yeah, I definitely am, moderate on this issue. Like I said, I'm not for getting rid of it, but I think it should be noted that, encourage people to have additional savings accounts set up in addition to their Social Security. Okay, next is we have the economy. Okay, now we finally on to the topics. So first is universal health care, preferably a Medicare for all type of plan, which I'm here for to a certain extent. I do not believe in the progressive aspect of Medicare for all, where they close down all private institutions, because then that becomes a monopoly, which the government would then be violating their own selves, because it's like it's hypocritical for you to penalize other companies for becoming too big, such as Apple and Spectrum, but then when it comes to something really important such as insurance, now we're at the sole discretion of the government, which if Republicans take over, now if they raise the prices extraordinary, astronomically high, there's no choices, and it does limit competition. However, I do think that Medicare for all should be an option, in addition to keeping private, you know, insurance institutions around. So I'm for keeping the private medical institutions around in addition to a Medicare for all system. Increasing the minimum wage to a rate that provides a living wage in its given geographical area and set the rate to adjust for inflation from now on. Somewhat here for it. Like I said, I believe minimum wage should be immediately increased to $12 an hour, and then by the year 2028, it should be increased by that time to $15 an hour. Make permanent the middle class tax cuts while repeating the corporate tax cuts from the 2017 tax bill. That's open ended. 4. radically reduce, in some cases outright forgive, the debt of college loans. Currently 44 million people owe almost $1.5 trillion in student loan debt, a crushing burden that holds back the younger generations from starting businesses and buying homes. So honey, ain't that the truth? Because I'm one of those people struggling right now as it is. We should treat student loans like other debt, enabling a refinance at lower interest rate and allowing those who declare bankruptcy to be freed. Okay, so she wanted to put it back under bankruptcy. So, a catch-22. But at least I'm here for it. Okay. I think it should be. I think America does have the means to currently eradicate it, especially if you're trying to propose free education. I would think it'd be morally wrong to darn gonna have the younger generation going to college totally for free, and then you still have us on the line for darn gone student loans. So I think it should be darn gone completely eradicated off the record. Especially people who are working in their field. I mean, if the ones who are not working in their field, I would say for low income, who are making under $50,000 a year, it should be depleted. For people who qualify for that. For others, I would say if you are not working in your field, it should be depleted by at least anywhere from 33 to 50%. For the ones who are not working in their field, couldn't find, viable work in their field, liberal arts degree is not working anymore. Communication degrees are not working anymore in 2019. So for those types of degrees, I think, there should be at least taking 50% off if you're in another job making over $100,000 a year. If you make under $50,000, it should be permanently eradicated off of your record. So number 5, introduce government support for child care services. I'm here for it to a certain extent, expanding on child care services. Provide free higher education, including tuition at public colleges, community colleges, and trade schools. I'm totally here for that. Like I said, I don't believe in free college for universities, because by default, see, Bernie Sanders wanted to have free 4-year college, but the problem with free 4-year college is by default you eliminate the need for trade schools and public colleges. So it's like, why would I go and pay at a 2-year college where I could go to a university totally for free? So that was going to cause thousands of community colleges to close down if Bernie Sanders were proposing 4-year colleges. So I like this one better, where it gives it to the the community colleges and trade schools instead of the universities. Number 7, restore a modern glass steagall separating commercial banks which take deposits and make loans from investments, ensuring that banks cannot make risky investments. If they fail, they should not be bailed out by the government. Hold Wall Street accountable. Okay. Numero 8, aka number 8. No bank that is too big to fail should exist. There are benefits to capitalism. One is things that don't work shouldn't survive. Numero 9, aka 9, establish a Green New Deal, create millions of jobs, repairing American infrastructure, building high-speed trains, and creating a renewable energy system. I'm all for going green. However, the Green New Deal to the tune of $90 trillion is not it. No. Especially if you're talking about a world initiative. It's like, I understand we're the leaders in the world, but how come we have to take on that burden all by ourselves? I believe that this should be a conversation on a global front. Like, this should be something that our allied countries should also be pinching in a few of their funds in. Like, I don't see why America is flipping the bill for the savior of the entire world. That's number 1. Number 2 is the fact that it's $90 trillion. Oh God. We need to get that number down. But anyways, that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. Numero D's, aka 10, protect the rights of working people to organize for better wages and working conditions. Okay. Numero Uns, aka 11, enact paid family and medical leave to enable working parents to care for loved ones. Okay. 12, Do's, provide equal pay for equal work. Trans, 13, paid vacation should be provided to all employees, even part-timers. Every industrialized nation but ours guarantee this right. 14, portable retirement plans must be offered to every worker in this nation. A retirement plan that one can take with them from job to job. No one should be afraid of their future. Okay. Close the loopholes that give big banks and businesses and ensure they pay their fair share of taxes to level the playing field so small businesses can compete. Okay. Protect homeowners from predatory lending practices and increase access to loan modifications that enable people to stay in their homes. I'm here for that. Invest in our infrastructure, creating jobs by rebuilding roads, bridges, and rails, increasing renewable energy power, updating clean water systems, improving our well systems, and massively investing in public transit. I'm here for that. Enforce antitrust laws so that new businesses have a chance to succeed. Eliminate the income gap on payroll taxes. Raise the estate tax with special care given to help family businesses pay off the estate tax bill over time so we don't shut down small businesses. Definitely here for that. Okay, finally the last one, numero 21, aka de l'anglais, number 21. Eliminate the carried interest and ETF tax loopholes enjoyed by Wall Street. With the U.S. economy, it is the best of times, it is the worst of times. Okay, I'm not going to go into all of that. I'll allow y'all a second to read all of this. 4-step plan, provide immediate cash relief through a universal basic income. Oh, Lord. Okay, is she UBI too? Lord Jesus. Now, I done told y'all about this UBI bill now. Lord. Marianne, now. Okay, I see that you planning on joining a Yang ticket. Because it's 20 candidates running for president right now, and they eventually have to darn narrow the space. And some of the candidates can get in with other people on other cabinets, such as vice president or a member of the appointed cabinet. So, Marianne Williamson, was you trying to appeal to Andrew Yang just in case if you lose, you can slide in on his ticket? Or vice versa, if he loses, he could come in on your ticket. So you have the Asian man and the white woman who is proposing reparations. Now, I'm not necessarily against it because, honey, I'm not necessarily for Andrew Yang at this point in time by himself. But if he teams up with Marianne Williamson, that might be the ticket that could darn take Trump out. A darn Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson ticket. I can see that. But anyways, I haven't looked at his entire platform yet. Y'all know that darn platform, and he has looked like a darn dictionary. So y'all give me a couple more days to look over that and then, do the video on that. Y'all know that video is going to be like 2 hours long. But numero two, create jobs through a Green New Deal. I told y'all, we need the world to pitch in on that. Like, I don't know why America is taking on this global initiative by itself. France and everybody else should be darn pinching in on this darn Green New Deal. Numero trois, create jobs through a carrying economy. Numero quatre. Ooh, Lord. I know my French was bad on that one, y'all. I got a little head cold, so excuse me on that darn error. But numero quatre. Increase wealth through a universal savings plan. Okay. I see you got a little talking point from darn Cory Booker on that one. Let me turn my top fan off real quick, y'all. I told y'all it's been hot for the past few days here in North Carolina, and I got this one darn air vent, and for whatever reason we can't get another one drilled in, so I got to have both of my fans on in my room. Oh yeah, here we go. See, now she going in detail talking about under my plan the federal government will pay $1,000 a month, a universal basic income to all American adults age. Now Marianne Williamson, baby. Now you know damn well you got that from darn Andrew Yang. See, this is why I'm glad I started this series on my channel, so we can see who is starting to line up with who, because we all know that Andrew Yang came up with this first. At least he's the one being the one highlighted on this issue first. Now, did he really get it from you? But I'm willing to bet since he's the Asian and he's the one all about the numbers that you took this note from him. So it's like, okay, now I'm really starting to see a Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang ticket for 2020. And we might have to do a video on y'all two. Like, what do y'all think about them two teaming up? A Marianne Williamson and an Andrew Yang ticket. Like, come on now, you even got the darn dollar amount the same, $1,000 a month. You didn't even think to even change the number up, girl. Now you know you darn took that darn from Andrew Yang. But anyways, you know they say great minds think alike, so I'm not necessarily chastising you for it. But honey, you know you needed to cite your sources. Now how you gonna be the darn author out of everybody running? You the darn one who's written books. Now you the one know out of all people to cite your sources. Give credit where it's credit due, boo. Go ahead and say you darn snatch this one out of Andrew Yang's playbook, aka the platform. So we already know how this goes. I done read this to y'all when I was discussing, Andrew Yang's UBI. So I'm trying to figure out, okay. So we back on this darn $3 trillion again. I done told y'all this would darn cost $3 trillion annually to pull off. I think we should darn get the reparations out first, because since you are the moral person darn running, since your whole platform is based off of morality, before you can give a helping hand to everybody that is already in a decent place, you should darn correct the wrongs first, and darn use the profits from what the added value of black people put in an economic situation would be. I done told you, if you give black people the $6 trillion, we would actually double our spending power at the minimum in the United States. So that's an extra $1 trillion a year that black people alone can put in towards the economy. And then after that extra $1 trillion is circulating into our economy, then you can propose, $1,000 a month, the UBI. But right the wrong first. You pay the ones that you owe before talking about giving a cash out to everybody. Okay, and then there's that Green New Deal. Okay, and then here comes Cory Booker's talking point right here. See, estate tax. I don't believe in penalizing millionaires who are low, because It's like we are fortunate enough to be so blessed with so many athletes and singers and stuff who are millionaires, but not necessarily mega millionaires. Like, not everybody's to the level of Beyonce, Jay-Z, P Diddy, um Ronaldo, who's a soccer player, Michael Jordan. Yeah, I'm black. I'm saying a lot of black names. I'm trying to think of some white people, y'all, for y'all. Um, Angelina Jolie, etc. Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio. I believe that, the estate tax should be for people um of, let's say, 20 million. So over 20 million dollars. I don't believe in penalizing millionaires who are below 20 million. So yeah, put the estate tax on people who make over 20 million. So all the football players who are getting this deal, such as Sierra husband, uh just became the most wealthiest football player to sign a deal for $140 million. Put the tax on him, but don't put the tax on, let's say, Mr. Bierman, who done got kicked out of the NFL. Miss Beard Klinsman from Real Housewives of Atlanta. I think he was worth only $1 or $2 million anyway, so it wouldn't really affect him. But if he was at one point in time valued at $6 million, I don't think he should be subject to the darn estate tax. Just my opinion. Oh. See, y'all already making money off of this, off of darn currency exchanges and stuff. That's how the banks make their money, is through darn exchanges, through different stocks. So I don't necessarily agree with adding additional fees and penalizing people from getting into the darn stock exchanges on that, with cryptocurrency and stuff. So cut waste to the military. I done already told you earlier how you can cut that. Destroy them darn poppy fields. Get our economy green. Because number one, she don't even really need to address this, because naturally, if you get our economy to a sufficient level off of electricity and hydropower, along with wind turbines, by default, this already gets cut, because then you won't have a reason to be over in Africa guarding oil, because we're not in any active war at the moment. We're only in Africa due to the darn oil and due to darn heroin. So if you get rid of those two darn things, honey, that cuts the military down by over $500 billion right there. So I think we finally on to the last issue, y'all. Are we? Oh shoot, we got veterans and then women's rights. So veterans, providing veterans with their much deserved support. Our veterans are some of the best and brightest citizens we have, to be willing to put their lives on the line so that the rest of us may exercise our freedom is something I am awe of. And then it goes on from there. Okay, so pretty much she reiterating what we went over earlier about national security. And the last one, women's rights. And here are the key areas, y'all. Reauthorize and fully fund the Violence Against Women's Act, and then remove all sunset provisions so that it cannot lapse. Increase rule, regulations, and oversight to prevent pregnancy related discrimination. Require more post-birth leave times for mothers and fathers, passed the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. Now, when you're talking about the Constitution, once again, this is stepping outside of the presidency. I want y'all to note that for a constitutional amendment, you have to have a bipartisan decision on this. So this is more so, she can push it, but once again, this does not just require a simple majority by the House and the Senate. Any amendment to the Constitution actually requires 2/3. So short of her getting 66+% of the House, which is virtually impossible because only 1/3 of the Senate at any election time is actually up for re-election. So during the 2020 re-election, only 1/3 of them are up for re-election. The other 2/3 are not. The House is, we already got a majority, but once again, it's just a simple majority. Democrats do not own over 66% of the House, so this is going to truly need a bipartisan support if you want to add an additional amendment, because to amend a constitution you have to add another actual amendment, and we haven't had an amendment because it's so difficult to do, because hell, in the past 50 years, 2 generations, Democrats and Republicans have not been able to really do nothing to that scale. They haven't gotten along that well, so I don't see an amendment getting passed anytime soon under these types of circumstances. But we can be hopeful. I would love to be corrected on that. I would love for our economy to finally become more bipartisan. Support the Empower Act, ending the monopoly of power over workplace harassment through Education and Reporting Act. Empower the Justice Department to more thoroughly prevent sexual harassment, discrimination, and rape. Okay. Provide more funding for Head Start and high quality child care, as the city of New York has provided universal pre-K for its citizens, so must the United States. Fund and expand welfare food stamps coverage for low-income families and children. I'm here for that to a certain extent. I don't believe in permanently having to rely on those resources, but for the ones who are struggling for the time being, I do believe that a partial increase can happen. Although, here's the catch-22. Now, under Andrew Yang's platform, he is saying either or. So I wonder if she's going to be either or for this as well, because she's trying to essentially say both need to be addressed, versus Andrew Yang is talking about you have to pick or choose. Either the $1,000 a month for the UBI or your current welfare that you are receiving. It seems like she hasn't specified whether you have to choose one or the other or not. It looks like she's trying to advocate for an increase in addition to the $1,000 a month in the UBI. So I would love somebody to question them. Hell, they wouldn't pay for me to be a darn on moderator. Hell, they get me at a town hall. See, this is why I love darn on doing this series, because this would be a question that I would ask at the town hall for Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson to elaborate on whether Marianne Williamson is for increasing the food stamps and the $1,000 a month UBI, versus Andrew Yang is more so you got to pick or choose which one you want. That would be an interesting question for them to face during the town hall. And then last but not least, the feminine energy is the energy of creation and of protection of the community. By adopting policies to protect women, society simply protects itself. Okay, another moral statement from a well-written author. And that ends our darn on thing, I believe. So that is Marianne Williamson in a nutshell, y'all. A great amount of good, some not so good, some flat out bad points, but overall well-rounded. I do believe out of the 6 people that I've actually covered thus far, out of the 20 candidates running, she definitely ranks within the top 3 for me. Like I said, right now it's Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, and Marianne Williamson who are in my top 3. Now, once again, that's because I've only done 6 candidates thus far. I haven't gotten time to Joe Biden. I can already tell y'all right now, I already have a bias against Joe Biden for obvious reasons. Go check out my video when I was on the 2016 election. I mentioned why I have a bias against Joe Biden, but we'll mention that when his time comes, when I do his video. But then you also got Gildebrand and several other ones. Peterberg. I'm going to see if his website has actually updated. Y'all remember when we looked at his website, I couldn't find the issue section either on his, and I didn't see where it was. I eventually found Andrew Yang's, and his shit looked like a whole dictionary. But we're gonna also circle back to Mr. Peterberg and see if he has actually updated his website too. So stay tuned. This is what's going to be happening for the next year on this channel. Now don't worry, we still gonna have our celebrity talks and my regular vlogs on my channel, but I'm going to also incorporate this type of videos on my platform. We're going to really get into the politics of it. Y'all tell me how y'all are liking these videos as well. What y'all want me to update on as far as doing these, and that is it. So like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'm going to see y'all soon with more videos. Mwah.